Welcome to the Clinical Cookout. Hey now, it's your Auntie Ashley.
What's up? It's your girl, Auntie Suge.
Hey, it's your girl, Auntie Quiche.
Hey y'all, it's Auntie Amber.
This podcast is for educational purposes only. We are qualified clinicians who will cover various topics on mental health and will sometimes provide community resources. We are not being paid by any organization for our content, and any information we provide is general and pertains to our own personal experiences. We do not provide psychotherapy, diagnoses, or treatment recommendations on air. Any concerns related to your individual mental health should be directed to your medical and mental health professionals. We are not responsible for others' decisions or the subsequent consequences.
Welcome back, y'all, to another episode of the Clinical Cookout. Today, we're going to start off a little different where we have only 3 aunties today because our lovely Auntie Amber will be taking her state boards, hopefully this week coming up. So everybody wish her luck before we get started in this episode.
All right. So now you got Auntie Suge, Auntie Ashley, and Auntie Quiche today, and we have a really good hot sauce for y'all. So this week on the Twitters, a fellow, I'm going to say colleague because she is in the mental health field, a fellow colleague of ours, a licensed clinical social worker, made a tweet basically saying she is no longer going to be working with the male population. She no longer will be working with men because men have been inboxing her, basically trying to get her to tell them, well, why should you be my therapist? Why should I let you be my therapist? Like, you prove yourself to me before I come on as your client. And her argument was like, that's what consultation is for. Like, inbox, let me know you're interested. We'll have a consultation. We'll see if we're fit. And if we're not, then you find somebody else. But don't try to make me prove myself in an email or an inbox or a social media inbox. That's crazy. So she doesn't want to work with men anymore. Mind you, context, she also said before that she doesn't work with children or couples. So she has populations that she just doesn't work with. But nobody was mad until she said she didn't work with men.
I got a lot of questions.
And Black men in particular took it the worst, even though she never singled out Black men. She said men in general. Black men have begun sending messages and leaving reviews saying she doesn't want to work with Black men. So if you're Black, you shouldn't go to her. And she never said that. She never said Black men. She said all men. What y'all got?
I got questions. That's what I got is questions.
You got questions.
Go ahead with your question, Suge. Because
how did people arrive in her inbox? That's one question. Number 2, why did they arrive in her inbox? There's 11 therapists out here, and they said, let me go in her inbox and ask her to prove herself. How did this happen?
Well, I think based on her, I'm going to say profile, there's the specific populations that she obviously serves. And I know that one of them were Black men and Black women. And I think people inferred that she was talking about Black men when she said she wasn't going to work with men because of their just trying to get her to prove basically that she's worth them having as a therapist. And people just took that as her speaking about Black men, and then they brought up old tweets. Listen, what they are doing to that woman is uncalled for.
What are they doing?
They're doing the most.
She has got sent death threats. They have reached out to her licensing board to try to revoke her license. They have tried to get her fired, unaware that she has her own private practice. She doesn't work for anybody. So they can't get her fired, but they think that they can get her license pulled. When I say death threats, I mean somebody inboxed this woman and said that they were going to slit her throat.
Well, maybe she should stop working with intense psychopathology.
We don't even know if she was working. We don't know that.
And she literally did a TikTok trying to explain why she had where she was coming from. And so for me, I'm like, y'all didn't take no time out to either read hear from other professionals, because there were other professionals trying to explain to them ethics, and what they thought was discriminatory is actually a specialization. Like, they are literally telling professionals who are in the field that they have no clue what they're talking about, like literally telling us that. I just think that, you know, a lot of the things that she was saying was her being specialized. Like, she wasn't trying to discriminate against anyone. At least that's not from the intentions that I got. And there were actual like counselors, social workers, even psychologists on there saying, like, this is not discriminatory. What are y'all even talking about? Like, they were literally trying to tell people who know ethics inside and out, oh, no, y'all don't know what y'all talking about. And we're like, yeah, but discrimination in this case is not what you think it is. And they literally didn't want to listen. Nobody is taking anything in, and they are literally willfully not even trying to look for an explanation. It's an immediate, oh, you're a victim. Now you want to be a victim. It's a lot of vitriol, a lot of derogatory stuff going on. And it's honestly scary that therapists can't express that, you know, the human things that are happening to them. Now all of a sudden, if they say certain things, they're immediately getting doxxed, immediately getting their license removed. And I'm like, y'all jumped. How did we jump from here to there?
It literally makes no sense. I'm sitting here and I'm like, I don't think people understand that our ethical codes, and everybody has different ethical codes. Mm-hmm. Our ethical codes are what we follow. So nobody out here whose license is trying to go against their ethics. We talk about it a lot. We have classes on it. They have continuing education classes on ethics. It's something that gets talked about a lot. And one of the things, particular in the ACA code of ethics for counselors, is that we can't do harm. If you are going to do harm, it's just like with medical doctors. First, do no harm. That's in our code. So if I know that if I work with this person, it could possibly cause harm, whether it's because of my own bias, like I can't put that to the side, or because I do have a fear of that particular population, it's okay for me to not work with that population. If it's going to cause more harm than good, it's okay. And we also have to protect ourselves with boundaries. Like, if I know if I work with this particular group, it's going to be counter-transference and I'm going to get messed up mentally, I probably shouldn't work with that group.
So who's she working with? You're not working with couples. You're not working with families. You're not working with men. Like, who's she working with?
She specifically works with Black women. That is her specific population that she specializes in, Black women.
Do y'all think that the problem came in when she said, I'm not working with this population, instead of just being like, I'm willing to work with everybody, but this is my specialty? Because this is for me. As a therapist, I don't shun, and not necessarily shun, because that's not what she's doing, but I'll say shun. I don't shun any population. Like, if I'm able to work with them, then I work with them. I might not love it. Like, I don't like to work with autism because autism is not it's not my specialty, but I do it because, I mean, if I'm therapeutically able to help somebody, then I do that. So how did she get to, I'm not working with men, period?
Because of what was happening. I believe it's because what she was sent in her email. Mm-hmm. And a lot of men were saying there shouldn't have been a generalization, but the same men were trying to infer that she was talking about a specific type of men, and she never said any of that. Mm-hmm. She was explaining to them, but she went into a further TikTok as to why, proving their point. Like, they become violent. They become basically like, this is power struggle. Now they're trying to make her prove to them why she needs to be their therapist. She's like, this is not how this works. And because they can't have that power over her, they immediately went to death threats. It just went too far.
They literally proved
this milk ain't clean.
They literally proved her point. They proved her point.
I feel like it ain't clean.
If nothing else, they proved her point, because it's like, I have to protect my own peace. I think that's what some people get misconstrued about therapists. They think you have to want to help everybody. No, we're human. No, we don't. We want to help people, but I don't have to want to work with everybody. No, I don't. I get to make those choices that have that boundary. Like, I've personally said, I will not work with sex offenders, and I won't. I'm standing 10 toes down on that. Like Auntie Shug say, I will not work with a known sex offender. So that doesn't mean I won't ever get a client who I don't know that they're a sex offender and it comes out. but I will not work with a known sex offender because I know myself. That's too much for me. I don't prefer to work with kids at all. So I won't do that. I hear people all the time say, I'm never working with couples. And couples ain't for everybody. It's okay.
But I feel like it's something in the milk ain't clean. I hate when I don't be having the whole story because I'm like, how do they get to? I could say I don't want to work with autistic people, and I don't get a whole bunch of autistic parents in my inbox being like, prove to me why you don't want to work with autistic kids. Like, how did we get here?
She was getting the inboxes before she made that tweet. She made that tweet as a response to those inboxes, pretty much saying, I will no longer be working with men in general. And I know other women therapists who feel that way. They may not say it publicly, but they don't like working with men because it is a power struggle. Because we know we live in a society where it's very male dominated, patriarchal, misogynistic, and for a lot of men, the power dynamic in a therapist client relationship, the therapist has the power in a sense. Now, I don't work that way. I like egalitarian relationships, but the therapist has the power, and a lot of men are not willing to relinquish power to a female therapist.
I think that the reason why we're here, and it was another person who came on there and kind of like was in defense of the therapist. She said that her friend was an esthetician and stopped working with men. She said because they would be ejaculating and just not respecting. Like the stories these women were sharing were like, this is why we don't work with y'all because of X. You see how y'all acting? Like y'all automatically go to death threats. And they're like, why can't you simply just move on and go to a therapist that does work with you? Right. There are plenty of therapists who do specialize in men, specifically Black men. Now, is the pool to choose from limited? Yes, I will give you that because we don't have a lot of Black, female, or male therapists. Absolutely, I'll give you that. But a lot of people were arguing like, well, why not just move on? If this is not the therapist for you, why are y'all hunkered down on this one therapist? She's not for you. Move on. And it was really hard for people to move on. But I think one of the issues that I think is going on is people's perception of therapy. Because it's a female-dominated industry, I think that they assume female or woman industry, vulnerable, soft, gentle, and then when that person sets a boundary, it's almost like that's the opposite of what they thought it was. What do we call that? A cognitive schema? Is this what we call that?
I believe
cognitive distortion.
It's like a dissonance, distortion.
Yeah. It's like that they associate those things with therapy and forget that nope, that's not how this goes. And because it's outside of the normal femininity, whatever they have made up in their head, now I feel like this is why we have the reaction we have.
And the fact that she's not buckling, she is not backing down. So to then have her double down and be assertive and say, I'm still not working with men, that's like pissing them off.
What made men start going into her inbox altogether? Is she like just out there in the open in the world on TikTok, Facebook? Like,
she's on TikTok, on Twitter.
Yeah, she has her titles behind her name on her platform, so people know she's working in the field, and that may be how she does. Like some therapists do have social media pages for their particular practice. These are not their personal ones; these are their practice ones. Because I have a practice Instagram, and it's just for mental health information and things like that. So if somebody inbox me in my inbox from IG, I will direct them to the website. First, I ask what state they're in because there's no point directing them if they're not in the state that I'm licensed in. But if they are, then I direct them to the website for more information. So they might just be inboxing her because that's the way they found her.
Yep.
Okay. And so then at some point in time, she was like, I'm not working with men. And then they was like, wait, what? And then it kind of spiraled from there.
Yeah. Because she has worked with men before.
Yeah, she got male clients now.
She got male clients right now.
Yeah.
She gonna keep them. She just ain't taking on no more new men.
Okay, so she just said, I'm not taking on no more new clients.
Mm-hmm. Basically.
No more new men.
She specifically said men, and men got upset, and Twitter has been in shambles for the past 24 hours.
So I feel like, I'm not saying she's wrong, because like I said, there's populations that I don't necessarily specialize in, but I am one of those people that's like, I can work with anybody. Give me a goat. I can talk to the goat. That's just me.
Right.
But I just feel like there's some stuff that's missing, or maybe it's the social media thing, because sometimes we put things out there in the world and then people latch on to that one thing. And then
Mhm.
it's like, okay, well, when do I get to change? Just because I said this a long time ago, when do I actually get to change? And maybe that's how they got to the point where they was like, well, no, this don't sit right with us. Now we're going to start inboxing you. And keep in mind that people who inbox you, whether they're black men, they're white men, whatever kind of men, people who inbox you and put out death threats and stuff like that, that's psychopathology. That's not necessarily somebody who's sane and that's like, oh, I understand you can't work with us. Those are that's the response that you want. So what she got was the ultimate that you don't want to get even if you're working with regular people. So that's the boundaries anyway. She should have cut it off anyway. But I wonder if social media land is how we landed there, because everything we put out there, it stays out there.
Yep.
And that's a good place to go on and take us into our main dish for today, which is social media. And she had that question as well. Somebody asked her, why you have to put it out there? If you could have kept that to yourself, don't put it on social media. So what's the effects of social media on us and the culture today?
I guess if you circle back to, that question of, why did she put it on social media? I guess that's the tricky part. Like, I don't know if that was her way of like announcing, like, anybody else who wants to come to me, I'm currently not taking men at this time. And it was just her way of announcing that. I don't know. Like, I cannot say what her intentions are. But I will say that because of the backlash, I'm probably 100% sure a lot of other therapists saw what was happening and was like, oh no, like they're now retreating, like not saying anything.
Retreat.
Listen, I saw that and was like, now y'all know damn well y'all are unhinged, but I'm not gonna say that. I'm not saying that at all because I'm over here trying to get my goddamn license. So I wasn't gonna say that, but I'm thinking to myself, like, do you know how? And that's just me being silly, but you know how like therapists are like probably thinking like, damn, we can't even be ourselves. Like we can't even be, even if we are professional, it's almost like they can't separate the professional from the personal self. They're not able to do that. And I don't know if she tweeted out as a professional thing, a personal thing. I'm not sure, but a lot of people were sharing their opinions about how we shouldn't have, how therapists shouldn't act in an unprofessional manner to say those things. And I don't necessarily think it was unprofessional.
It
I
was
just thought
not.
I thought she said it in a way that was professional. Now, if she'd have went on and been like, them black bitches and like
Right.
going in on them, then I'd be like, hold up, sis, hold up. But that's not what she was doing.
She did.
So my thing is, I do think that there is professional life. So let me just start off by saying this. I've always worked for like older men. Um, they are definitely afraid of social media. And I see why. Because I had one, he was like, I'm afraid of it. I don't even go on my Facebook, because he was like, he's a social worker, a doctor of social work. And then the other one is a psychologist and a mental health counselor. And he's like, no, because if you know the mind of the human being, they will eat you alive.
Mhm.
So you do have to have staunch professional boundaries, and then there's a part where you come in.
Mhm.
And I mean, I do believe in that, because even with your I don't know. I think that there's a line to everything. I think there's a place for everything. If I have a medical doctor and he's operating on me, and this might be a poor example, I don't know, and he's operating on me, I want him to have his biggest professional hat on at all times. And then I want his other life to be separate from whatever he's doing in there, because maybe in his other life he might feel like, you know what, black people get on my nerves, this, that, and the third. But when you in there, I want you not to be. I don't want to see any of that. So that's why I kind of try to keep the biggest professional boundary in there ever.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's a good example, but I'm just like, I just think everything needs to be separate. I think there's a place for everything.
Yeah.
People get to see me, and they get to see me show up in therapy, but what y'all get to see, my clients don't get to see that.
Mhm. Okay, I'm somewhere between. First of all, most people know how I feel about the whole idea of professionalism. It's seeped in westernized white. Y'all already know how I feel about professionalism, because there are certain things that used to not be deemed and still are not deemed professional that have nothing to do with me doing my job. Like how all of us have our hair today, there are still states that would discriminate against every hairstyle we have right now, and that's a problem. But I do believe it's a time and place for everything. And ironically enough, this whole thing with what people share on social media, um, especially coming from a professional lens of being in the mental health field now and what we were talking about in the hot sauce, gave me a different perception of pastors. Because you know how people put pastors on pedestals and they no longer allowed to be human? That's what that made me think of. Like, goodness, all of this time I've been acting like the pastor can't mess up, and knowing he's still human or she's still human. Now I get it. Like, I want to still be able to be human on my social media pages. I should get to do that. I should get to post what I want to post. Now, there are some things you are going to end up in trouble for. You can't just be an outright racist or sexist or misogynist. You can't be that, or misandrist. You can't be those things publicly and not think that that's not going to come back to bite you, because everything has consequences. But if you're none of those big isms, you should be able to say what you want to say on social media without fear. Like, your client could randomly find you. They know your name. So they could randomly find you.
And they do. I've
And
had a
they
client
do.
find
And they do, but I'm not about to cater my personal pages to that. If you find me, you find me. And this is also why I'm big on being super authentic with my clients. I don't think there's anything that they would see where they would be like, "Ooh, that's not what I thought about her." You know, that's what I thought about her. Like, that's why I work with her.
Right.
That's just me,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah. I think, I think I see both sides. I see both sides to what Auntie Suge is saying, Auntie Ashley is saying. I think there's a room for both though. But I don't feel like sometimes as humans, like Suge was saying, humans' minds only pick up what they want to pick up when it fits their narrative. And I I don't know where that line is at. Like, therapists should be able to be who they are. But then it's like something like this, where she was speaking in a professional way, still got misconstrued, still got turned upside down. So then it's like, oh, sis, we shouldn't even say that in the first place. Because it's like, now you have to worry about death threats. Now you have to worry about people coming for you. And I don't think that's fair either.
It's not.
But then it's like, what, I almost like, I just don't know. I just don't know. I just know for me, and I'm pretty sure other therapists who watch that, literally people had to come out the woodworks to try to support this person. And then there were other people who were like, well, yeah, I don't work with this population, but I'm not going to say it online. So there are people who felt like, no, I'm not going to say that. There are people who were like, no, this person is a human. So I don't know. I think there's room for both. I just don't know the line.
So you know, let's not even only talk about therapists, right? Because we ain't the only professionals. There's doctors, there's lawyers, there's pharmacists,
teachers.
Gotta be. You said what?
Teachers.
Yes.
Ooh,
so
teachers
like
getting it bad on social media.
some stuff, and they do get it bad on social media. But imagine the anxiety of all of these people who cannot be themselves in the public eye and in the school. But do you always want somebody to be themselves? There's this one, like, you know what I mean? Like, when you have high school students, right? And you have teachers, you have to be careful and you have to toe a very fine line with what you put out so that these students get the professional version of you. So, like, you know, teachers who are, you know, hypersexual and stuff like that, you can't bring some of that stuff into the classroom. You have to keep that kind of personal. You have to keep that personal. I'm a very private person. So for me, it's like I show you what I want you to see. And then my friends get all of me. Or my people, the people that I choose to get all of me, get all of me. I just don't think that everybody deserves everything because everybody can't take everything.
That's fair.
That's fair. I do believe it's a line. Like, I'm not gonna post on any of my social media pages me tore up drunk like that. That's just not gonna happen.
Yeah,
And it's
well,
not that that doesn't happen in real life, but it's not gonna get posted. But with social media, you also run the risk of somebody else posting you. That's also a factor, because if we're out, anybody could pull out their phone and start recording you, and you might not know it. So that's the other factor. So now I'm in trouble, even though I was cool and safe about my stuff. Somebody else did it. But it all speaks to social media in general. And I love that you said, do we really want people to know us like that? Like, know our full self like that? Everybody? Because we do have personas. So that's a Carl Jung thing, a psychoanalyst who came up with the idea of the, you know, the personas and the archetypes. Your persona is what people see publicly. That is what people see. And the persona even changes depending on where you are. Like, my persona at work may not be the same as my persona at church, which might not be the same as my persona at school. So
Right.
you do have these personas, but ultimately the foundation should still show you. Like, I should still be able to say this is her, but she does what she needs to do depending on the setting without being phony or fake. Because that's social media brings in a lot of fake and phony too. Those personas that you think are real are not real.
I feel like it also depends on people's perception. Like, I tend to mix in me being a professional and me, like, when people say like, oh, Keisha be cussing, absolutely, because I don't want you to put me in this box where you only see me in this professional manner because I've had all these accomplishments. And now the moment I say something about sex, the moment I cuss, now all of a sudden you're removing the human side of me. And now I'm now a different person in your mind. And I'm like, no, I want you to see both sides or all dimensions of me because I don't want you to be surprised by anything.
Yep.
But I also think that depends on perception and what people deem to be disrespectful. I did not deem what she said to be disrespectful. She wasn't calling anybody names. She wasn't using like any type of derogatory terminology when it was, when she's talking about men, or just in general when teachers are on, social media or whoever. As long as they're not disrespecting someone, that I'm okay with that person being authentically themselves. I think that I loosen the grip on that sometimes because I think that we all put people in a box, and when they jump out of this box, not everybody's caught off guard because they didn't see this authentic person. I want to make sure that I approach somebody and they know both sides of me. Yes, you can see my accomplishments, but you also gonna get this stripper Keisha too. I'm gonna be right at the strip club and I'm gonna let you know I'm there, and then you're gonna have to deal with it. And just like that, I told my supervisor the same thing. I was like, listen, if I don't pass this test, I might have to become a stripper. And she was like, well, it doesn't say in the ethics that you can't. Okay, so she's not going to be surprised about me going to the strip club and seeing it on my Facebook.
Right.
So those are the type of things that I mean. I wasn't trying to be disrespectful. I was just keeping it real with her.
Right.
And, but for some people that may feel like a disrespect, like, oh, how dare you be a doctor and want to be a stripper? How dare you? Well, in my mind, they're equivalent.
Oh, God.
I love it, Keisha.
But I'm just saying, as far as like social media wise, I don't want people to be surprised by that.
Yeah.
And then be like, oh, I want them to be like, oh, that's just Keisha. She just being her. You know what I mean?
And oh, go ahead, Shug. Were you gonna go?
I was going to talk about, so I was reading a post on Facebook. So I did want to shout somebody out, and this is a shameless plug. Shout out to Ernie Bivens. He moved from our hometown to Las Vegas, and he's like killing the game. He's a comedian. But I did interact with him on his post today because he said, I wish we could go back to the days where there was no social media, only because a lot of people have become warped by social media and think that there's something that they're not. In my era, we had to show and prove, not lie and post. And we wanted to be ourselves, not somebody else.
Ooh.
That, like, I swear, like, that's just
Ernie.
it goes exactly with what we said. But it kills me when people say stuff like that because we always been fronting. Everybody has always fronted, and everybody has not shown who they are, like in real life, forever. And so I said, well, people were still lying, covenanting, and fronting in. It just wasn't broadcasted worldwide. You could literally change your identity because others didn't know who you were whenever you moved somewhere. Same shit, different toilet. Okay. And I do believe in that because when I came, like whenever I moved away from home, people were different. It was like people had these new personas to reinvent themselves. They got to be who we know dang on well that they wasn't. Yeah. All of a sudden you thugged out, and at home you were not. And it's kind of, you know what I mean? People got a chance to change themselves. I do think that there's a certain autonomy that I like to have. I think in personal life, that's going to be different from the autonomy that all my patients see. Like if I'm going to be twerking and I'm going to be stripping, I don't want my patient to come in the strip club and see me. So that's me.
But you know that's a possibility though. That's
when you make that decision, yes.
Yes, but okay. In my defense, you have to be smart when you do these things. I'm not going to be out willy-nilly in my hometown in a strip club. I'm going to be somewhere in Vegas or Miami. So that way they don't even know who I am. Like, you got to be smart. Now y'all know.
You're going to get Marvin on the Players Club.
Huh?
You're going to get Marlon on the Players Club.
See, you playing. I'm never a one to move like a fool. Like, I ain't going to do that. If I've been in the field for 10, 12 years now, and I ain't jeopardized nothing, obviously I know how to move a certain way so I don't have to jeopardize. And the one time I did move wrong and almost jeopardized my career, I had to actually come out and be like, okay, if you either gonna retreat or you gonna stand 10 toes down on it. And I stood 10 toes down. And I've been okay since then. So if something does happen, I will survive. I'll be okay. I done been through adversity before. So to me, I'm like, this don't scare me. Okay. I'll move along to something else different, but I'm gonna be me, and I have to realize that sometimes you are not for everybody. That's a hard lesson I had to learn. I'm not gonna be for everybody. There may be people who are gonna be looking at me like, I don't want my therapist talking about being a stripper. Great, that's okay.
I'm not for you.
Fine. I'm okay with that.
Yes.
You don't like me talking about being a stripper? Okay. Well, my bank account gonna be fat, and I'm gonna find clients that's gonna like it. Period.
Well, you can be in there recruiting because some people need help. But,
right? How you know I'm not in the strip club trying to give them some mental health services?
Oh,
that don't mean I gotta dance.
That's what I was coming.
That don't mean I gotta dance. I'm gonna be a bottle girl. What that mean? I mean, come on.
But you know what I do think though too. I think that there's a lot of, and I think that some people who consistently have a problem with actually marrying themselves to their their personal selves to them professional selves. That's anxiety. Because like just being like, oh my God, you know, I want to be this person. I want to bust out. I have to be this person that I show on my social media and in my real life. You can be trying to be too real too. And I think it's so dang on corny when people are, I'm real. If you gotta walk around and announce it, you're not.
That's true.
Yeah, and like just being like, I'm real. I'm gonna say the same thing I say at work, at home, with my friends, and in my professional life in a professional setting. I would not, and it doesn't make me not real. It also makes me smart because you can't move like a fool, like you just said. You have to
move like a fool.
That's not realistic. That's not. See, this is why I'm having.
How?
Like defense mechanisms? Is that what you're talking about? Like having to always project that you're real and you're real?
Yeah.
Is that a defense mechanism?
It is a defense mechanism.
Yeah. You know what? I agree. You have to. This is why I focus so much on being authentic, because see, being authentic is very different from having to prove yourself or be one way here or try to be the same way in every place. Being authentic means you are showing up as authentically yourself in every space, but you also know how to cater yourself to that space while remaining authentic. So you still are you. Everybody who knows you in any space knows that you're you. And I liked what you said about what Ernie posted about him, like saying social media, he wish it wasn't here because people get to be fake and you don't know it. And you countered that, like, people always been fake. It's always been fake people. Because it has. The only thing social media did was exacerbate everything that already existed. It's been just like when we talk about mass shootings or you know, police killing Black people. These things have always occurred. Now they just get put on social media and it seems like it's a lot. It's always been a lot. It's always been too much. But one thing I do, if we bring it to kids, since Auntie Amber not here, I'm gonna bring it back to the kids for her. If we bring it back to kids, it's so interesting to me that we consistently, and I'm sure you can say you've done this, Auntie Suge, and every parent probably can. We have consistently taught our children, just be yourself. If they don't like you, then they're not for you. You just be yourself. The people who like you for you are the people who really like. These are lessons that we teach children, but then we go into, well, be yourself, but you know, be careful in this arena, or be yourself. Like, it gets confusing for a kid. If I tell you to be yourself, that means be yourself. I should be able to do that. So that also speaks to character. Like, if your character is good, you should be able to show up as yourself anywhere and be fine.
Yeah, that's true. But personality and character are two different things. So, and I'm gonna talk about that because in a few months I'm going to be doing a seminar, and one of my like the things is personality versus character. So your personality is things that make people like you. You know, it's what makes you cool. It's what endears people to you. Your character is saying, if I say I'm going to do something, that means I'm going to do it. Your character is your core beliefs. So I do teach my kids to exert your core beliefs. Your core beliefs are do what you say you're going to do. Be awesome on purpose. Like I do affirmations with them in the morning before they go to school so that they know all these things are like inside. I want to embed these things in their character. However, I do teach them, be yourself, but your personality, sometimes ain't the personality for this arena. If you go to school and you wild and you crazy, and it's time for you to sit down and hunker down and actually do your work, your personality need to get somewhere and take a back seat, and that's when your character has to show up. So that's a me thing. I don't think I'm not my full blown self in every single arena, because y'all know I'm a whole lot of personality, and
True.
it ain't always professional.
True. True. I mean, there's a lot of people who will tell you, you right. Now, you right.
They don't always want this.
They don't want all of that.
Ooh, y'all not ready for the authentic Auntie Shug.
No, y'all not. Y'all
We get
think
to
y'all
see
get
that.
y'all think y'all get it here. This is not fully her. This is listen. If you think she funny on here, you don't know nothing.
I had to learn how to be a chameleon because I am smart, and I will survive. Like, I know how to survive. I am a survivor. Like, with what I've been through, I can't be stupid. I have to be calculated. So you can't always just show up and with your ratchet self. They don't want that from me.
And I know I just my struggle is this. There are some people out there with bigger than life personalities. And I don't like telling anybody to make themselves small, because that, even though that's not what it really is, we're viewing it from I'm a chameleon. I'm just changing with the environment. Kind of, if this is the environment, I need to change myself to fit the environment at this moment, and I'm still myself. But some people do have really big personalities, and they're just always, some of your people who get famous for sure, they always had that big personality. If you talk to people who watch them grow up, they were always like that. That's them. So it's like you never know what you could be hindering or fostering by doing that when it comes to kids. Like, yeah, tone your personality down. Okay, well, now I'm ashamed and I don't like implementing shame. You have to tone your personality down here. Well, what if I struggle to do that? Okay, well, then maybe something is wrong with you. Well, what if there's not? And I really just do have a big personality. So it's really hard for me when I'm telling people to be authentic and really working on that with a lot of clients who were told your personality is too big for this space. And now they are totally different people who are shells of what they could have been because they were told that for so long.
If you turn into a shell from what you could have been because somebody's asking you to be professional in a professional space, then there's something wrong with your shell.
I'm not talking about just being professional. We're talking about social media in general.
No.
I'm talking about in general. Kids ain't got to be professional. It's school. I'm talking about children.
My bad. No, I mean, but even in school though, like sometimes you can't let that out. Like just me working with kids, these kids get in trouble. Like you can't, like, I remember being a talker, constantly distracting people by talking. No, you have to be quiet. You have to, in this space, you have to learn self-control. And I do think that there is an element of grace, like when you learn self-control, because your personality can be big. Denzel ain't walking around acting all day. You know, like he's you know, he's a family man. He's a Christian. He had these, even actors and actresses have different personas, and when they don't, and when they marry their professional with their personal, they usually blow the hell up.
Yeah,
and it's usually not a good look because some people can't take that. You have to learn how to be in different spaces, and that's why you might get some people with that severe depression. Think of how many of them are like, you know what, I can't take this no more. It's too much pressure. So I think that for me, I think it's relieving pressure in those areas. You can still be who you're going to be after work.
I think self-control is the term. Self-control. Self-control is something that we do teach a lot of clients. You have to have self-control. I think self-control, boundaries, and expectations are three things to focus on when dealing with social media. First of all, don't get on social media expecting people to always just show up in a way that seems right to you. Because just because it's not right to you doesn't mean it's wrong. The person we were talking about earlier, the social worker, she wasn't wrong. She might not have been right to you. You might not have liked what she said or how she did it, but she still wasn't wrong.
Yeah.
And I think social media gives people this idea that they get to like really have some type of say or control over other people's lives, down to the kids. Like, this is why you got parents who are like, how young is too young to let my kid be on social media?
How young is too young, Keish?
Well, I feel like me answering that would not be the appropriate answer because I know a lot. Only because I know a lot of kids. I work with children 0 to 6, and a lot of them have iPads. A lot of them are on YouTube. A lot of them even ask me in session, like, "Can I watch Super Kitties? Can I watch Jurassic Park? Can I watch this?" Not granted, a lot of those things are age development developmentally appropriate, obviously, but I don't know. I think that kids can have. I know they have like parental like thingies controls on certain on iPads and social media stuff. So I'm not against it. I think that if we talked about brain development, me and my supervisor talked about having children have 1,000 hours outside, which children need. And so I
Yeah.
think there's a balance of social media and having your child on social media and what they get from that, and also giving them the nature, giving them the opportunities to go outside and explore and play, because we all know that the best way a child learns is through play
Yeah.
and through their social interactions with other people. So I'm not against, like I said, kids having social media. I just think that there does need to be some sort of parental supervision, which I think leads into another issue when people blame social media for the issues that's going on without taking a proper look at themselves as to how they govern their household, what type of parameters they set in place. And I know this might be controversial, but I'm just going to say this because she is a social worker and she did bring up a good point. Brene Brown talked about the type of values that families have. She says some families are parent focused, some families are children focused, and she said, and then you have families that are family focused. And she said her family is family focused, which means that everybody is adhering to the values of the family. So it's like everybody's on the same page, not just you're doing what the parents say or that we're only focusing on the child. No, we're focusing together as a family. So as a family, if you care about social media and want to be on social media, what does that look like as in like your values of the family? Like, well, how do you view social media? Is that a place for you to be just who you want to be? Or is that something you're like, no, this represents the family and we don't want to really do that. So let's put some controls around this. So again, I just think that depends.
I like that. A family folk. I like that. And now
I
you're
did. I
right.
liked it.
It's controversial because I'm gonna tell you right now, most of the black people I know ain't going for it. I'm the
I
parent,
know.
run this house,
No,
and that's it.
I say controversial because a lot of people talk about how Brene Brown stuff is not for black women,
Oh yeah,
not for black families, which is that I give it that. I'll give it that. But that in that particular segment that I watched her have this interview with a podcaster, I think on TikTok, that was the part, and I was like, oh, that's I didn't see it like that.
I
Okay.
mean, yeah. My my oldest got social media because it is an age limit, whether people know or not. And teenagers, of course, or preteens can lie, but Facebook, I know for sure, asks you, "Are you at least 13?" Like you got to put in your birthday. You're supposed to be at least 13. Now, the funny thing is, historically, Facebook was for college students.
It
I
was.
personally did not like when they opened Facebook up to everybody. It was for college students.
Mm-hmm.
But since they opened it up to everybody, it's like, okay, so how young is too young? With YouTube, kids definitely watch things on YouTube and you can cater YouTube. You can make it kid friendly. Now, with the other social media sites, you can't. There's nothing you can do. If they got a Facebook page, a Snapchat, a TikTok, a IG, there's not much you can do for that. So you have to, I think it's based on the child. Is this child responsible enough to have social media, no matter the age? And then the age comes into play. Like, I don't want a 5 or 6 year old having a Snapchat, but my daughter's in high school. She has a Snapchat. I also have access to all of her social media pages. I have access to everything on her phone. Do I check it a lot? Not a lot, because I do trust her and I want her to learn my mother trusts me enough. So, I'll do what's right because she does trust me. But I check it every now and then. She never knows when I'm going to check it. So that is what keeps, in my family at least, that's what works. Because her father hates social media. He does not have it at all. And I'm big on social media. Loved it. Been loving it since I got on Facebook in college. But because of that, it was never going to be an agreement of when the kids could have it because he doesn't like it. So he left it up to me. Like when you think they ready for it, I'm gonna let you do that, and she's responsible. Our other daughter has a TikTok. I have all access to that. I think it's on the parents to be responsible for that if they're going to allow their children to have it.
Heck no,
I was
these
waiting
kids
for it.
ain't get no dang on social media. For
I was
what?
waiting for it. Suge ain't letting her kids do nothing today out the house. You got to be grown and out her
I'm
house.
not listen. I will say I'm not a fan of kids having Snapchat. I'm not a fan of that. That's the only one I feel like kids can get away with some stuff that they probably shouldn't. But I think that there's controls on that too. I
There
think
is.
from what I understand.
Mhm.
But that's the only one that I give a raised eyebrow to. But I work with children 0 to 6, so they don't have social media, so I don't got to worry about that with my
I
kids.
work with them adolescents, and no, it's a no for me. Now, I told y'all my 12-year-old, I'm not raising who my mama raised. She that's it. This comes from Abraham's side of the family. She just don't need all of that. She don't like all that attention. She don't have to have none of that. So now I got one coming up behind her that I'm gonna have to do all the things for. That's Miss Izzy. But
Leave her
but
alone.
for for me, the reason why it's a no for me is because I want you to develop who you are outside of other people's opinions first. It's not like, oh, you can't have it in this, that, and the third. I want you to develop who you are because middle school is harsh and it's hard. And she goes through a lot of scrutiny already. There's acne that's going to come up. There's, the first time you start liking boys. And when people start getting on social media, I've seen even some of her friends, they post some nasty stuff about each other. And then this person, then now they got to go to school and they got to go see themselves in school, in middle school, where people still developing their own identity. And y'all know middle school is very raggedy when it comes to that. That's when you develop all your insecurities because people talk about the way you look. That's the most awkward phase where you do look the most awkward.
Mhm.
And it's like, I don't want you developing under the guise of social media. You don't need it. Now, I'm also one of the ones that still make my kids go outside and play. A lot of people don't do that. We ain't sitting in front of screens all day. We're not sitting in front of electronics all day. Ever since Tamia got a phone, there's a shift. She doesn't want to ride her bike anymore. She wants to be on the phone. And so, if the phone has this much authority, imagine social media where now you have to look at everybody's outside opinion of yourself. And then now you're looking on social media, you're looking at all these little Hollywood girls. This stuff is not real. These bodies ain't real. None of this stuff is real. But you're looking at it and you're comparing yourself to these people who have money and unrealistic lives. And I don't want that in her psyche before she's mentally able to handle it. We got a long time till 25 when her brain is actually fully developed.
Okay, I'm a counter you just a little bit because I agree with you and I definitely understand, but I'm gonna counter it because it's a both and, just like with what you said with Ernie, how you countered it and said it was always there. Middle school's always been the hardest stage,
Yeah.
and things have always been. All social media does is exacerbate what's always been. Like I remember in middle school having Teen Cosmo magazine and seeing images of girls that didn't look like me, and I'm thinking I'm supposed to look like that. I remember you got picked on and bullied long before social media. Social media has just made it worse. So these things all existed. Social media has made it worse. So children have always been developing their identity around others and taking in what others have said. Whether it was back in the day, people used to write past notes and letters and all kind of stuff, and that was the way to talk about people and to talk bad about people. Now it's just on a phone, on a screen, and the real dilemma with social media is with the internet. Once it's out there, it's there. There's nothing you can do to take it back.
That's true.
That's the part. That's the only part that scares me. If you put something out there, it could come back to bite you. There's nothing you could do about it. It's there. This
And,
like,
and kids are less than smart right now.
and kids are less than
They're
smart.
less than smart right now. And so until you're able to know what's appropriate to put out there, because they think anything goes. They have the dumb anything goes mentality. So I don't want you with your anything goes mentality out into this world before I've had the chance to teach you. I don't
Mhm.
want the world to have to teach you that way. And then, back then when we were writing notes and passing notes and saying her feet stank and this, that, and the third, she might not have to read the note. She she might not have to read it. But when it's out there on social media, they're gonna make sure you read it. They're gonna screenshot it. You're gonna have it all sent to you. And I just think that it's a dangerous world. I think everything in its own time. When I was a child, I spake like a child. When I was an adult, I put away childish things. And for me, I want to teach my kids in that way. Like, I want to teach them everything ain't for you at every single time. You don't get access to everything. You're a kid, and there's a place where kids need to be sometimes. And in my house, it ain't gonna be on social media. It ain't gonna be on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, because a lot of times too, some of that stuff it goes away in a day, not before it's screenshotted, not before it's sent around in school. I just had a kid last July kill himself over some social media foolishness. He was in middle school.
Yeah. Yeah, that actually just happened somewhere else recently. A 16-year-old baseball player, white boy, and I think it might have been Texas. I can't remember. But it's been posted everywhere. That wasn't even social media though, and that's my point. It still happens. I believe he committed suicide. He did commit suicide because his baseball team was literally tormenting and bullying him. This is supposed to be a team of teammates, camaraderie, and they bullied and tormented him so bad that's the only option he thought he had. And he actually begged his mother to be pulled from the team. And she was like, no, you made a commitment. You finished what you started, which is a whole nother tough topic we can talk about, listening to our kids,
Yeah.
especially in the age of social media, listening to our kids. But I just think it's everything in its place. And there is a place that children need to remain in, but there's also that time where you can give them space. And also realizing, just like when we were kids,
Yeah.
your kid's gonna find a way to do certain things anyway. And that's always my thing. If you don't give it to them, they're gonna find a way. And I'd rather you be honest with me, because if you gotta find a way, now you're being deceitful and you're lying and you're hiding things from me. And I don't want that. I never want my kids to hide things from me, because I know what that feels like, to feel you have to hide something from your parents because out of fear that you'll get in trouble. So with social media, I really don't want them to hide that from me. I don't want to find out you had a private account that I didn't know about, because that's even more dangerous than me being able to hop right on your phone and check everything that's on there.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I look at it. But I do see both sides. I do completely understand both sides. But with that, I mean, I think this would be the perfect place to kind of give our takeaways on social media in general, just everything we've been talking about, and go into our foil.
So, with this conversation today about just in general social media, I'm a firm believer in being authentically yourself. However, I am a firm believer in moving strategically, not being a fool, as Auntie Shook would say. Don't be foolish out here, okay? So the reason why is because, you just never know how people perceive you. Not saying that it matters, but it's just a simple fact that sometimes people will just take your shine, and it's just not fair. Or somebody trying to ruin your life intentionally, all because they misinterpret what you said. So just be sure to just move strategically. That will be my advice for social media.
I am obviously a big proponent of you can be yourself, but within boundaries. And honestly, that's where it depends on where you are. I have several different arenas. I compartmentalize my life. So I don't believe that everybody should get all of you at every single time. I don't think that you should be fake, no, but I do also believe in, like Auntie Keish said, moving strategically, thinking about, okay, when I put this out there, how might it be perceived by other people? Because we're in an age of cancel culture. We're in an age of losing your jobs, and everything that you put out there, your kids are going to see. I move very strategically on here because my kids do pull up the clinical cookout and watch it. Their friends pull up the clinical cookout and watch it. And my nieces are especially watching the clinical cookout, and they're at their very impressionable age. So even at work, I like to show my people, the people that I love, how to show up. Um, I wouldn't show up in a thong to the staff meeting. So I'm not going to show up on social media just as raggedy if I want to have a professional persona. So I think I just am in the stage of watch what you're doing at all times, because you can be your authentic self, but your authentic self does not have to be stupid.
I, y'all know I struggle. I struggle because this is my takeaway for everybody. Like I said, I'm all about being your authentic self. And like Auntie Keisha and Auntie Shug said, you can do that without possibly or potentially causing yourself harm or negative feedback per se. And that's not to say you have to care what others think of you, but that is to say you have to care about what you're going to get from it. Let me just say that. Like, you don't want to lose your job behind something foolish on social media. Nobody does. But if it's something that you stand firm and strong in, that's different, because I don't want to tell anybody not to advocate for certain things or, speak out about certain things. So being your authentic self has its place always, but you do have to know how to kind of show up depending on the place. And you have to know how to maybe balance. We talked about self-control and balance earlier. Self-control, balance, and being your authentic self can coexist. These things are not mutually exclusive. So all of them can happen. And with social media, they kind of need to happen. So show up as you, because you don't want anybody to say, well, that's not who she showed me she was. Yeah, I showed you that's who I was. I just showed you in a different way, or we were in a different venue and this is who you saw, but this is still me. We are multifaceted. You are not just one dimensional. So if we're multifaceted, that means you can be different in different places while still being authentic. And I think that's my biggest takeaway.
Okay. Yeah, my whole thing is don't fumble your bag. I don't mess up my money for nobody. And then, like, dude, with me out here losing my job trying to please people, because that's what people are doing. I'm so real. Be trying to please all these people.
If you're trying to please people, you're not being authentic anyway.
Right.
A people pleaser is not authentic.
Right. Well, they be trying to please people, and then that's next thing you know, now you don't have any money. Now you gotta go look for a job. I can't. I have 5 kids. I don't have time to try and please other people and lose my livelihood. It's not smart.
I get it.
And if you do, stay 10 toes down in it and be unshakable. Like, if you got to be solid and whatever it is that you stand 10 toes down in. So again, like the therapist earlier that we had spoke about, like, we know that she wasn't violating any ethical codes, which is why she said what she could say.
Mm-hmm.
The public opinion just didn't like it. So we know our ethic codes, and we always I will try to speak generally for everybody. We know our ethical codes, and we know, especially a lot of us who's been in the field for a long time. And if you would like to look at any of those public violations, you can. And majority of them come from men half of the time.
Unfortunately.
Some of them, and especially when it comes to sexual relationships, that's a big thing in our ethical codes, and it's normally violated by men. So now does that mean that women don't ethically violate that? No, that's not what we're saying. But and anyway, and not even just a woman. Men are allowed to set those boundaries as well. If a woman is coming on to him inappropriately during like a session, he is allowed to cut that off and say, you know what, I don't really want to work with women right now because his objectivity is impaired. So, just be mindful that we all take our clients and what we do seriously, and that we all understand our ethical codes. And if we are practicing unethically, it is our job as therapists, counselors, social workers, and psychologists to check one another. That is what our ethical codes are asking us to do. So if whoever is acting unethically online and you are their colleague, we have an opportunity and an obligation to check them first, handle it, and then if it's not resolved, then we go a step up to the ethics board.
Right. Correct.
Yeah. Yep. And I think I would say things that you're going to be proud of. Like, she might be proud that she said, you know what, I'm not going to work with men, and that's demonstrating boundaries, even if it's online. I say things that I'm going to be proud of. I try not to say things I'm going to be like, oh God, why did I say that? I mean, it's you might do it anyway, but I would just say be careful in business and in life.
And I think she, not necessarily proud, I think she's standing 10 toes down in it because it sparked a hell of a conversation that needs to still be had about how people in general handle it when they feel offended. Because just because you feel offended doesn't mean someone was wrong. It just means you feel offended. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, listen, trust me when I tell you, like Auntie Keish said, we know our ethics is something that we all learn and we uphold them. And I'm sorry, it's not a lot of us Black women in this field. We're not about to mess that up. None of us are trying to lose our license. Mm-hmm. That's why we know our ethics. This is why. We are Black women. We are trying to hold it down and trying to help our community. We're not trying to lose our license behind no BS.
So. And I want to add one more thing. There was a Black lady on there that said that even though a lot of Black men were upset about what she said that she wished that they knew that we advocate for them behind the door. You do not understand the amount of advocacy we have to do behind the door to make sure that you're still getting what you need as well. So even though that tweet may have came off the wrong way, there are Black women that are advocating for you behind the door. And I can't even say that she isn't, because she may be. She still may be. I don't know. But I know, like, me and what I study, Auntie Shug, Auntie Amber, and Auntie Ashley, we have all worked with Black men at some point in our lives. And we have, created the show to have it as also a way to, advocate and work with and support Black men as well. So you may not like some of the things we say, and that's okay. But that doesn't mean we stop our advocacy for our community. And I wanted to make sure that that was put out there and that it was straight across the board. Two things can exist at once. We can check your ass and we can advocate for you at the same time.
Boom.
Yep.
And you know what? I think that's a good.
Well,
place.
with that said, yes. Okay.
We both on that. Like, that's a perfect place. The two things can be true at the same time. And cut no, but no, y'all. That what Auntie Key said pretty much solidifies this episode. Two things can be true at once. Period. So we gonna get up out of here. Auntie Shug, go and say your line, girl. Say your line, girl.
Y'all about to do.
Peace, y'all.